Joe Burrow saw, I think, the biggest jump of anyone in this exercise this year when you look at the rankings of
Yeah.
individual quarterbacks. And he obviously went from tier 2 to tier 1, but I think he was 15th on last year's list. He goes all the way to 6th. But when you look back at the commentary in last year's quarterback tiers, I think even the last two quotes you had in the Burrow section, it felt like we might be on the precipice of this. So even though it seems like a big leap, I assume a lot of the guys you talked to probably had an inkling that this might be doable in 2021 for him.
There was a visceral reaction to him. There's an appreciation for how he plays the game, and not just from the pocket, but the toughness. I mean, he really stood in there and took a beating. And when you do that, the guys on the field know. And so I think one of the quotes in there was like, hey, our guys came back to the sideline or whatever, and we're like, this is a real dude, And so they saw that. Now, I think you have to be careful, too, like just the style of play or those attributes. It's not everything, right? I mean, you can
get
like
you in trouble.
You can like a guy for how he goes about his work and then overvalue that a little bit. Now, he took the Bengals to the playoffs. They had a good defense, but he took the Bengals to the playoffs in the Super Bowl. So, I think he's going to be a tier 1 quarterback, but that's probably the one guy where, look, incredible weaponry that played amazing, didn't make it through his rookie season, is with an organization that I think has made great strides, but still has to prove itself over time, and had the one great year. So that may be isn't the freakish athlete like the Allen or the Herbert, right? So that may be, I don't know about the most speculative of those, but there's probably a reason why he's 6th, and not ahead of Herbert and Allen. Do you sort of feel that?
Yeah, I've always felt that. The Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow conversation, I've always been a Herbert guy, even if I love Joe Burrow. And there are two things I want to talk about with this. One, when you read all these conversations in succession and you have the feel of how these guys talk about the quarterbacks, those kind of toughness, play style, what is he like on the field elements, they could really come through in this, because there are guys, I think Ryan Tannehill's toughness is something that has been lauded over the years when you talk to people in the league about him. And that comes up all the time in conversations about Ryan Tannehill. For guys like Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr, it's the opposite, where there are questions about, is he going to stand in there when he starts getting hit? How is he going to move through that? And so that is more of a staple of this exercise and the chats that you're having with people than it might seem for people who just think about this from the outside in. The last thing I wanted to mention with Burrow is one specific quote that I think you had a quarterback coach say, and it was something I thought was a really interesting observation. And it was about Burrow predetermining a lot of where he goes with the ball. And some of that is based on the fact that they spread it out and show him the picture. So they give him choices very quickly by virtue of the way their offense is constructed. And you can imagine that from last year. Just think about Jamar Chase down the right sideline, single high. I know I'm going here right away. So a lot of the decisions that Joe Burrow made were predetermined just based on the look the defense was giving him. Is that something that's going to be available to him as he starts getting the treatment that really, really good quarterbacks get? And he has some of that. He was not blitzed nearly as much last year as he was early in the season. I think teams realized that sending pressure at him was a really bad idea. So there are elements of the way that defenses are playing him that align with a Mahomes or somebody like that. But I'm wondering how real that is and what we're going to see from him if we're going to be getting more too high stuff, more coverage-based looks where they're not, because their offense was so siloed last year.
That's the case for putting him in the top of tier 2. What's the rush? That's the Top Gun Maverick quote. Look, it takes time in the cockpit here. Let's make someone do that longer. I think sometimes this could be one where you so admire those the traits of Joe Burrow and the way he stands in there, and he's a great pocket quarterback, which is still what it's about. Ultimately, when it gets reduced down, that people just love, like I said, the way he plays and really the way he leads that team. I mean, he just has a almost Brady-esque kind of determination to him and grit, doesn't he? I mean, he brings a toughness. That thing we talked about last year of this is a real guy. Everyone feels that with him, and I think that gives him the benefit of the doubt and is why he clears that hurdle when it would be totally realistic to just say, hey, let's see if that's an issue, right? Let's see if he can make it through a couple full seasons in a row here before we put him in with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and these guys. I don't have a problem with him being in tier one. I think he's fine at the bottom of it. They went to the Super Bowl with the Bengals, so and there's nothing about him that I'm like totally concerned about. But I think it would be fair to let's see. You said you're interested in seeing it this year. I am too.
He deserves credit for making teams pay when they give him the answers to the test. But this year, are fewer teams going to be willing to give him those answers? Are they going to try to consciously and intentionally muddy the picture the way they do with a Rodgers and a Brady? And what ultimately ends up happening when we see that? I think it's a reasonable question, and I think it's something worth watching.
Yeah, like if he had a big interception this year, would you be shocked if he had 15 interceptions and it just wasn't quite as easy?
I would be shocked, I think, if he threw 15.
Yeah.
But if you think about a lot of their big plays last year, I think it was a lot of quick decisions based on the look and a lot of broken plays. If he's having to move off of stuff and get to secondary throws consistently, what does that offense end up looking like? I have a lot of faith in Joe Burrow to play the quarterback position at a super high level, but I do think it was just an interesting nugget that was brought up.